I'm Tisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, December the 17th, 2013. The IDF is continuing its investigation into the circumstances of the shooting death Sunday night of Israeli soldier Staff Sergeant Major Shlomi Cohen, apparently by a lone Lebanese soldier. The United Nations Security Council released a statement last night condemning the shooting, which occurred near the border fence with Lebanon. The council, which is made up of 15 members, said a UN investigation had confirmed the IDF assessment that the Lebanese soldier who shot the 31-year-old Cohen acted alone. It said the incident was a serious contravention of the existing operational rules and procedures. Earlier, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon also condemned the shooting and said that the IDF and Lebanese armed forces were cooperating with the United Nations interim force in Lebanon to determine exactly what had happened. And he strongly urged both sides to exercise restraint. Ynet reports that the U.S. administration expressed its condolences over the death as well, and U.S. State Department spokesperson Mary Harp praised the Israeli and Lebanese governments for communicating effectively in the aftermath of the shooting instead of escalating the situation. Cohen was shot several times while traveling in a military jeep near Israel's border with Lebanon Sunday night. He was rushed to the hospital but died of his wounds and laid to rest in Haifa yesterday. The Associated Press reports that New York Jewish businessman Jacob Ostreicher, who was detained for more than 2 years in Bolivia, is back in the United States. An unnamed State Department official said that Ostreicher had in fact left Bolivia. Ostreicher reportedly arrived in the U.S. yesterday. Ostreicher's daughter said last night in a phone interview with the AP that she had been informed of her father's safe arrival in the U.S., but the two had not yet spoken. The government of Bolivia is not confirming anything at this point, and details remain sketchy as to Ostreicher's exit from the country. Ostreicher spent 18 months in a Bolivian jail without any charges being brought against him on suspicion of money laundering while participating in a business deal in the country. He was released from jail a year ago and put under house arrest in Bolivia after the involvement of actor Sean Penn and several U.S. lawmakers on his behalf, including longtime advocate New Jersey Congressman Chris Smith, who visited Ostreicher several times in Bolivia and led a bipartisan congressional delegation seeking his release. The New York Times reports that the American Studies Association, a group devoted to the interdisciplinary study of American culture and history, yesterday announced that they have endorsed the association's participation in a boycott of Israeli academic institutions in protest of Israel's policies towards the Palestinians. We had reported to you last week that the group's National Council had voted unanimously to support an academic boycott of Israel and was then waiting for a vote by its membership. And in an election held Sunday night, the group's members voted more than 2-1 to support it. While the New York Times says the group is not one of the larger scholarly associations with less than 5,000 members, the vote, which is mostly symbolic, is a milestone for the BDS, or Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement. The BDS movement seeks to delegitimize the State of Israel. The Times piece did note opposition to the boycott by academia in the U.S., citing, for example, the American Association of University Professors, which is the country's largest professors group, who said it was against the boycott. They said that while economic action against a nation might be warranted, academic boycotts stifle academic freedom and are likely to hurt people who are not the intended targets. And Jewish organizations here in the U.S. are letting their criticism of the vote be heard. The American Jewish Committee Director on Anti-Semitism and Extremism, Kenneth Stern, called the action by the ASA abhorrent and blatant discrimination. Stern said academic freedom is based on the principle that human civilization benefits from the free flow of ideas and knowledge. This resolution, he said, ghettoizing knowledge simply because it is tied to Israeli academic institutions violates the core principles of the academy. World Jewish Congress President Ronald Lauder said the vote shows the Orwellian anti-Semitism and moral bankruptcy of the American Studies Association. Anti-Defamation League National Director Abe Foxman called the ASA vote intellectually dishonest and shameful, saying it is based on a myopic and fundamentally distorted perspective of Israel and the conflict and is manifestly unjust. Israel's University Presidents Association released a statement calling on its colleagues across the globe to condemn such academic boycotts, saying that endorsing them causes difficult consequences for academic freedom. And Israel's newly appointed ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer, slammed the boycott, saying rather than standing up for academic freedom and human rights by boycotting countries where professors are imprisoned for their views, the ASA chooses as its first ever boycott to boycott Israel, the sole democracy in the Middle East in which academics are free to say what they want, write what they want, and research what they want. And while the American Studies Association's president Curtis Mares admitted that Israel's neighbors have worse human rights records, he told the New York Times, one has to start somewhere. U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel called Israeli Minister of Defense Moshe Ya'alon yesterday. The White House said the call was a continuation of the two defense leaders' close consultations on shared regional security challenges, among them the situation in Syria and Iran, and the strong defense cooperation between the U.S. and Israel. The White House said Hagel underscored the U.S.'s commitment to preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, and that the two leaders pledged to continue their close communication on these and other priority regional issues. Palestinian news agency Ma'an reports that the Palestinian Authority was in talks with Hamas with the hopes of forming a national unity government in preparation for the upcoming Palestinian presidential and parliamentary elections. According to Ma'an sources, PA President Mahmoud Abbas received phone calls from Hamas leader Khaled Mashal and Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh confirming their decision to join the Hamas and Fatah parties. And Ma'an sources suggested that Abbas would choose PA Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah to lead the unity government. Agreements between the two rival factions have been announced in the past as well, but have yet to be implemented. A new synagogue was opened last week in Spain on the remains of the ruins of a synagogue from the 15th century. The ruins were discovered during construction of the Parador de Lorca Hotel, which stands on the ruins, and opened the new synagogue on the hotel's 7th floor. The synagogue, as well as a small Jewish cultural center, are housed in the hotel as a result of negotiations reached between the hotel management and the Sefarad Beitenu Jewish Association. Several heritage preservation groups had opposed the hotel's construction because it would mean the loss of the archaeological finds on the ground. But hotel management promised to incorporate the findings, including a 15th century mikveh or Jewish ritual bath, into the building's architecture. Slingshot has opened its application process for its 10th annual guide to North America's top 50 innovative Jewish organizations. Slingshot's mission is to strengthen innovation in Jewish life by developing next-generation funders and providing resources to leverage their impact in the Jewish community. The group is looking for nonprofits engaged in the Jewish community to submit applications online through January the 24th for the 2014-2015 Slingshot Guide. The guide is used as a resource for volunteers, activists, and donors who are looking for new opportunities and projects in the Jewish community. Slingshot's executive director Will Schneider said the group has always been a tool for funders to learn about projects that excite and inspire them, and he anticipates that the application process will serve as the link for funders to learn about projects that they might never have come across otherwise. And turning to our Shalom TV programming for tonight, Tuesday, December the 17th, at 8 p.m., a panel discussion from the recent Anti-Defamation League's 100th anniversary conference on a changing Middle East, challenges for the region, the U.S., and Israel. And then at 9 on L'Chaim, Mark Golub is joined by award-winning Egyptian human rights activist Dalia Zadia. That's here on Shalom TV and shalomtv.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, December the 17th, 2013. I'm Tisha Bader.